Before we begin, I want you to focus, because what I'm about to share isn't motivation or comfort. It is a direct strike at the part of you that keeps choosing weakness. People look at my speed and power and think it came from talent, but every bit of strength I had was built by breaking the limits inside my own mind. The real fight was never against opponents. It was against the fear, doubt, and hesitation that tried to control me. You blame circumstances, but your true enemy is the old version of you that refuses to let go. What I'm about to teach you is the mental training I never taught publicly, the inner discipline that forged a mind that does not break under pressure. If you're ready to confront yourself and step beyond the limits you created, stay with me, because the moment this begins, your old self starts dying. 1. Destroy the limit you built in your own head. Your greatest opponent has never been another person standing in front of you, challenging you, competing with you, or doubting you. The real opponent lives inside your mind. It is the voice that whispers you are not enough, the story you have repeated to yourself for so long that you now believe it without questioning whether it is even true. Most people never lose because the goal was too hard. They lose because they convince themselves they are incapable before life even gives them a fair chance. They walk into challenges already defeated, already exhausted, already imagining failure, and this mental surrender happens long before any real difficulty arrives. I faced many moments in my life where my body felt weak, where pain and injuries slowed me down, where circumstances crushed me, where critics mocked me, and where the world tried to measure my worth by its own limited standards. But in every one of those moments, I understood that the real danger was not the injury or the doubt or the external pressure. It was the possibility that I might start believing the negative story my mind tried to create. Instead of accepting these thoughts, I forced myself to ask a brutally honest question. Bruce, is this limitation real, or did you create it because it feels safer to remain small and unseen? Most of the limitations people live with are not solid walls. They are thin curtains, fragile illusions built out of fear, hesitation, insecurity, and past disappointments. They look real only because you have stared at them for so long. You hide behind them because stepping through them forces you to confront the truth about who you are, what you want, and what you are capable of becoming. People fear their own potential more than they fear failure, because potential demands responsibility. Potential demands effort. Potential demands transformation. That is why most people choose the illusion of limitation. It gives them an excuse to stay the same, but if you want to break free, you must tear down every illusion that convinces you to shrink yourself. You have to stop telling yourself you're tired before you even start moving, because that fatigue is not physical. It is mental resistance. You must stop telling yourself the journey is too long or too hard when you have barely taken the first step. That belief doesn't come from truth. It comes from fear pretending to be wisdom. Every time you underestimate yourself, every time you exaggerate the difficulty, every time you convince yourself you are not ready, you are strengthening the prison you built around your own potential. The mind becomes powerful only when you stop negotiating with these false limits, when you refuse to let excuses sound like logic, when you stop accepting fear as truth, when you challenge every thought that tries to reduce you. You grow the moment you decide that your mind will no longer be a cage, but a weapon, sharp, disciplined, and fully under your command. Destroy the story that weakens you, break the mental barrier that holds you back, and step into a version of yourself that you have been too afraid to meet. That is where true power begins. 2. Train your mind to act without asking for permission. One of the greatest weaknesses a person can have is the habit of waiting. Waiting for motivation, waiting for confidence, waiting for clarity, waiting for approval, waiting for the perfect moment that never arrives. Most people don't fail because they cannot succeed. They fail because they hesitate for so long that their hesitation becomes a permanent lifestyle. When you pause too much, the mind begins to fill those pauses with fear, doubt, and imagined obstacles. The longer you wait, the more reasons your mind invents to convince you that you should not act. When I trained, I understood something vital early in my life. If I gave my mind space to negotiate with my fears, I would lose. I knew that hesitation opens the door for weakness to walk in, so I trained myself to act before the mind had time to create excuses. There were nights when my body was exhausted, when my muscles ached, when my injuries burned, when the weather was terrible, or when my emotions were all over the place. But during those moments, I learned that discipline is not built when things are easy. It is built when every part of you wants to stop, but you move anyway. I never waited for the perfect moment to train. I never waited to feel ready or inspired. I acted because action itself creates readiness. Action creates motivation. Action creates clarity. People misunderstand this. They think motivation must come first and action comes second. But the truth is the opposite. Movement generates motivation, and momentum destroys fear. A mind that constantly seeks permission becomes a mind that never discovers its strength. If you keep checking how you feel before you act, you will always find a reason to delay. If you keep asking for approval from people who do not share your vision, you will always receive hesitation instead of encouragement. If you keep waiting for everything to fall into place perfectly, you will waste your entire life standing still. The forbidden mind training I practiced was simple but powerful. I trained my mind to obey me instead of questioning me. When I told myself to move, I moved. When I decided to practice, I practiced. When I knew I had to attack a weakness, I attacked it immediately. I trained the mind to follow command the same way the body follows technique. This is the level of mental discipline people rarely talk about. The truth is that hesitation is the birthplace of fear. The more you think, the more you imagine problems. The more you imagine problems, the more you avoid action. And the more you avoid action, the weaker your mind becomes. If you want true strength, you must break this cycle. Act quickly, act decisively, act with purpose, even when your emotions are unstable and your confidence is uncertain. You don't need to feel powerful to begin. You become powerful because you begin. This is what separates the warriors from the watchers, the disciplined from the comfortable, the successful from the stuck. If you want to transform your mind into a weapon instead of a barrier, you must train it to act without waiting for permission, approval, or comfort. Action is the ultimate form of confidence, and disciplined action is the ultimate form of freedom. 3. Remove everything that makes you slow, weak, or distracted. One of the most brutal truths about becoming strong, disciplined, and mentally unshakable is that you cannot rise while holding on to the very things that keep you weak. People want power, but they continue clinging to habits that drain their energy. They want clarity, yet they surround themselves with noise. They want discipline, but they build their days around comfort. They want transformation, but they refuse to let go of the people and environments that constantly pull them backward. When I look back at my own journey, I recognize that the version of Bruce Lee the world admires was not created by adding more things into my life. It was created by removing everything that slowed me down, numbed my focus, diluted my intensity, or cluttered my mind. I became faster because I subtracted what made me slow. I became sharper because I eliminated what made me distracted. I became disciplined because I cut out everything that gave me excuses to be lazy. The reason most people stay stuck is not because they are incapable, but because they refuse to confront the truth that the life they want requires sacrifice. You cannot keep the same habits, the same routines, the same people, and the same mindset and expect a different outcome. Growth demands space, and space is created by removing what no longer belongs in your evolution. When I trained, I protected my environment as fiercely as I protected my training techniques. I did not allow negative voices or doubtful minds to linger around me. I did not surround myself with people who talked more than they acted, or people who found comfort in complaining instead of improving. The energy around you is not a small detail. It is a major factor that influences the speed and direction of your growth. Understand this clearly. Every distraction you allow into your life is a thief stealing from your potential. Every unnecessary habit you refuse to remove becomes a silent weight, dragging your progress down. Every person who drains your energy instead of strengthening it becomes a barrier you voluntarily place in your own path. People often think discipline is solely about doing more training, more work, more effort. But real discipline is also about doing less. It is about cutting the excess, eliminating the noise, stepping away from the unnecessary, and refusing to carry emotional or mental weight that serves no purpose. You must become ruthless with what you allow into your life. If something slows your progress, remove it. If someone drags your spirit down, distance yourself. If a habit weakens your focus, replace it. If an environment numbs your mind, leave it. Transformation begins with subtraction, not addition. The mind becomes clearer when you remove noise. The spirit becomes stronger when you stop giving pieces of yourself to the wrong people. Your focus sharpens when distractions disappear. The path becomes visible when clutter is no longer covering it. If you want the level of discipline, mastery, and inner power that I built through years of relentless training, then you must first create an environment where that level of growth can exist without interference. Remove what weakens you, and what remains will be unstoppable. 4. Master the silent training. The training no one sees. If there is one truth I wish every person understood, it is this. The real transformation, the real mastery, the real strength is never built in front of others. It is not created in the moments when people clap for you, admire you, or cheer your achievements. It is shaped in the hidden private hours when you choose discipline, even when no one is there to witness your effort. Most people misunderstand training because they focus only on what is visible, the techniques, the kicks, the speed, the power, the precision. But none of that is where the journey begins. Mastery is born in silence, and silence is the hardest place for most people to stay. When I trained alone, late at night, long after others had gone to sleep, I wasn't just strengthening my body, I was forging my mind. In those silent hours, you cannot hide from yourself. There is no audience to impress, no competitor to beat, no teacher to correct you, no praise to feed your ego. All that remains is you and the truth of who you are. Silence exposes everything: your weakness, your distractions, your lack of discipline, your fears, your impatience, your emotional reactions, your inner dialogue. And because silence exposes so much, most people run from it. They fill their lives with noise, with constant entertainment, with endless scrolling, with opinions from others, with chatter that makes them feel busy but keeps them empty. They avoid silence because silence forces them to look in the mirror, not at their physical reflection, but at their mental reality. But I embraced silence. I wanted to hear my thoughts clearly, even the uncomfortable ones. I wanted to understand every hesitation, every fear, every flaw, every impulse inside me so I could reshape them. Silent training is not simply about practicing alone. It is about confronting yourself in a space where excuses cannot survive. When you train publicly, your mind can cheat. It can hide behind the energy of the crowd, the presence of others, the external pressure to perform. But when you train in silence, your discipline must come entirely from within, and that is where true strength is built. The world sees the final performance, the polished skill, the quick strikes, the controlled movements, the calm confidence. But it never sees the countless silent nights where I repeated the same motion over and over until my body responded faster than thought. It never sees the hours I spent visualizing my movements in absolute quiet until my mind could switch from one instinct to another with perfect clarity. It never sees the times I stood alone in an empty room, analyzing the way my feet moved, the way my breath flowed, the way my shoulders reacted, the way my thoughts shaped my reactions. That is the training that truly matters. The training when no one is watching, when no one will praise you, and when no one cares but you. If you rely on external motivation or external validation, your strength will collapse the moment those things disappear. But if your motivation comes from within, built through silent discipline, then nothing in the world can shake you. A person who learns to train in silence becomes untouchable in noise. A person who builds their mind in silence becomes unbreakable in chaos. A person who confronts their weakness in silence becomes undefeatable in battle. When you choose silent training, you choose to become your own teacher, your own motivator, your own judge, your own rival. And when you master that, you no longer fear the world because you have already mastered yourself. 5. Turn pain into information, not excuses. Pain is one of the most misunderstood forces in human life. People treat pain like a final warning, a sign that they should stop, retreat, become cautious, or turn back. They interpret discomfort as danger, struggle as failure, and difficulty as a message that they are not meant to continue. But pain itself is not the enemy. Pain is a messenger. Pain is a teacher. Pain is a compass that points toward the areas where you must grow. When I trained, I never allowed myself to panic the moment pain appeared. I learned to watch it, to listen to it, to understand its meaning instead of reacting emotionally to it. Pain taught me more about myself than comfort ever could. Most people avoid pain because they believe it threatens them. They think pain is a sign that something has gone wrong. But the truth is this: if you never feel pain, you will never feel progress. Every muscle you strengthen, every skill you refine, every fear you overcome, every limit you break, all of it requires friction, resistance, discomfort, and stress. Growth is not gentle. Transformation is not soft. Becoming stronger is not a smooth path where everything feels good. When I pushed my body past its limits, I felt pain. When I pushed my mind to remain calm under pressure, I felt pain. When I drilled the same movement thousands of times until it became part of my nervous system, I felt pain. But none of that pain was harmful. All of it was information. Pain tells you where your weaknesses live. It reveals the exact areas that require attention, refinement, strengthening, or rebuilding. When my kicks were not high enough, my muscles burned. The pain told me what needed to be stretched. When my punches lacked speed, the tension told me which technique needed adjustment. When my conditioning was not enough, the exhaustion told me where my endurance needed expansion. Pain became a guide, not a punishment. It became a map of my limitations so I could systematically destroy them. The problem is that most people treat pain like a wall rather than a doorway. The moment they feel discomfort, they assume they must stop. They label difficulty as danger without taking a moment to analyze what the pain actually means. When you react emotionally to pain, you weaken your discipline. You begin associating effort with suffering, growth with danger, and progress with fear. And once that mindset forms, even the smallest discomfort becomes unbearable because your mind magnifies it into something far bigger than it truly is. But when you step back, breathe, and look at the pain objectively, you realize that most of what you fear is exaggeration, not reality. I trained my mind to respond logically instead of emotionally. If the pain came from poor technique, I adjusted the technique. If the pain came from fatigue, I improved my conditioning. If the pain came from tightness, I stretched. If the pain came from unfamiliar movement, I repeated the movement until it felt natural. There is always a reason behind pain. There is always a message hidden inside it. Weak minds run from this message. Strong minds study it until the lesson becomes clear. Understand this. Pain strengthens you even when you do not see the results immediately. Every time you push through discomfort, you expand your capacity. Every time you endure difficulty, you harden your mental armor. Every time you refuse to let pain dictate your actions, you increase the strength of your will. Pain is not an obstacle, it is a forge. It shapes you, sculpts you, and burns away the parts of you that cannot survive the next level of your evolution. If you run from pain, you run from growth. But if you walk toward it with awareness and discipline, you become someone who no longer fears challenges, pressure, or hardship. Pain becomes your ally when you stop insulting it with excuses. Most people feel pain and immediately say, "This is too much," or "This is where I stop," because they have conditioned themselves to believe that struggle is a sign they are failing. But pain is not a sign of weakness. Pain is the proof that you are pushing beyond the boundaries of who you used to be. You should not hate pain. You should study it, understand it, and use it as fuel. Once you stop reacting emotionally and start responding intelligently, your growth will accelerate faster than you ever imagined. Real warriors are not the ones who never feel pain. Real warriors are the ones who understand it deeply, respect its lessons, and keep moving forward with clarity instead of fear. If you want to become someone unshakable, unstoppable, disciplined, and mentally fortified, you must stop letting pain scare you and start letting it educate you. 6. Eliminate the old you before the world does it for you. One of the hardest truths a person must face is that the version of themselves they are most comfortable with is often the very version that is keeping them weak, stagnant, and unprepared for the challenges that life will eventually bring. Your old habits, your old mindset, your old identity, these things may have helped you survive in the past, but they cannot help you rise in the future. Yet most people cling to their outdated selves because change, even when necessary, feels like death. And in a way, it is. To grow into a stronger version of yourself, you must willingly sacrifice the old one. You must destroy the parts of you that can no longer carry the weight of the life you want. I learned this lesson not in sudden revelations, but in countless moments of discomfort, frustration, and failure, moments that showed me the cost of holding on to who I used to be. When I look back at my journey, I realize that my greatest battles were not against opponents in tournaments or people who doubted me publicly. My greatest battles were internal, fought against the version of Bruce Lee who wanted to stay comfortable, who feared change, who wanted shortcuts, who resisted discipline, who preferred ease over intensity. This internal opponent was subtle, patient, and persistent. It whispered excuses, justified weakness, and tried to convince me that I was already doing enough. If I had listened to that voice, the world would have met a much smaller version of me, a version that lacked power, purpose, clarity, and mastery. The world does not gently guide you into growth. It will pressure you, challenge you, punish your weaknesses, and expose everything you failed to fix within yourself. Life does not pause because you hesitate, nor does it soften its blows because you are unprepared. If you do not kill your old habits, the world will destroy them for you, and it will do so at a time when you are most vulnerable. This is why eliminating the old you is not a luxury. It is a necessity. It is not cruelty toward yourself. It is protection for your future self. If you do not evolve willingly, the world will force you to evolve painfully. The choice is yours. Most people think transformation means adding new skills, new habits, new motivations, and new inspirations. They imagine that growth is about accumulation, but true transformation begins with removal, not addition. Before you become stronger, you must eliminate the beliefs that make you weak. Before you gain discipline, you must kill the habits that make you inconsistent. Before you develop clarity, you must destroy the excuses that cloud your judgment. Before you rise to the next level of your life, you must bury the identity that belongs to the previous level. Evolution is a process of shedding. Shedding fear, shedding doubt, shedding laziness, shedding the desire for external validation, shedding the emotional reactions that control you, shedding the version of yourself that never dared to move. There were many moments in my life where I had to sit alone and confront the uncomfortable truth that the next level of my training demanded a completely different version of me. I could not step into mastery while holding on to the mindset of a beginner. I could not step into global influence while carrying the insecurity of a local fighter. I could not step into my purpose while dragging the old identity that was built from limitation instead of possibility. Every time I leveled up, something inside me had to die, not physically, but mentally, emotionally, spiritually. And whenever I resisted that process, life made the decision for me by placing me in situations where the old me simply could not survive. You must understand this clearly. The identity you carry today was created by your past experiences, your past environments, your past choices, your past fears, and your past successes. But the future you want requires an identity shaped by discipline, clarity, courage, responsibility, and higher standards. Your old identity will fight for survival because it fears the unknown, it fears discomfort, and it fears the possibility of failure. But if you listen to the old self, you will stay exactly where you are, trapped in repetition, repeating the same mistakes, living the same cycles, and dreaming of change while avoiding the very actions that make it possible. Destroying the old self is not an act of violence. It is an act of liberation. It frees you from patterns that no longer serve you. It removes the emotional weight that keeps you slow. It clears mental space for new strength to grow. It forces you to become proactive instead of reactive. It transforms your life from a cycle of repeating the past into a journey of creating your future. The moment you decide to let the old self die is the moment your evolution truly begins. Do it willingly, or the world will do it for you. But understand this: one way or another, the old self must go. 7. Be water in the way. People never understood. People love repeating my words. Be water, my friend. They treat it like a poetic quote, something beautiful to share, something soft to admire, something gentle to take comfort in. But almost no one understood what I truly meant when I said it. They imagined water as calm, peaceful, serene, delicate, something harmless and effortless. But water in its true nature is not weak. It is not soft in the way people think. Water is one of the most powerful forces in existence. It adapts, but it also destroys. It flows, but it also cuts. It shapes itself to the environment, but it also reshapes the environment itself. When I said, be water, I was not teaching passiveness. I was teaching strategic adaptability combined with unstoppable internal strength. To become like water, you must first understand the nature of water. Water has no rigid shape. It becomes whatever container holds it. If you pour it into a cup, it becomes the cup. If you pour it into a bottle, it becomes the bottle. If you pour it into a river, it moves with the river. It adjusts effortlessly without losing itself. But at the same time, water remains true to its essence. Its adaptability never takes away its identity. This is one of the greatest powers a human being can develop, the ability to adjust to circumstances without letting circumstances control or define them. Most people become rigid in their thinking, rigid in their habits, rigid in their reactions. The moment life shifts, they break, because they built their identity on fragile foundations. But a warrior who thinks like water can survive any environment, any pressure, any change, any challenge, because they flow with the moment instead of resisting it. Water is patient. It does not rush, yet it achieves everything. A drop of water falling continuously can carve a hole through solid rock. An entire river can cut valleys through mountains. A steady flow can reshape landscapes that have existed for millions of years. This is the secret people miss. Water wins not through force alone, but through endurance. It does not stop when it meets resistance. It simply adapts its movement until resistance collapses. When you train your mind to think like water, you stop expecting instant results and start trusting in consistent effort. You realize that mastery is not about how intensely you push once, but how relentlessly you continue pushing over time. You understand that the world cannot defeat a person who refuses to stop flowing. Water is also deceptive in its strength. On the surface, it may look calm, quiet, even harmless. But beneath that calmness can exist immeasurable force. Waves can crush ships. Currents can pull giants beneath their depth. Oceans can swallow continents. The calmness of water is not weakness, it is controlled power. When I trained my mind, I never wanted explosive aggression without purpose. I wanted controlled intensity. The ability to strike with precision, to move with intention, to react with clarity, to stay still with awareness, and to unleash power only when the moment demanded it. The world is full of loud people who mistake noise for strength, but water teaches the opposite. True power does not need to announce itself. It exists in silence, waiting, observing, ready to move when necessary. Water teaches emotional mastery. Look at a river. It doesn't argue with rocks. It doesn't complain when obstacles appear. It doesn't resist or push aggressively. It simply moves around them, over them, under them, or wears them down slowly. Most people waste their energy fighting situations they cannot control, arguing with circumstances they cannot change, resisting life in ways that exhaust their spirit. But once you embrace the mentality of water, you stop wasting energy on emotional reactions. You conserve your power. You respond instead of react. You move strategically rather than impulsively. You learn to let go of what does not belong in your path and redirect your energy into what actually moves you forward. Water also teaches self-trust. No matter where water flows, it knows it will find its way. It trusts its ability to adapt, to navigate, to push through barriers, and to reach the destination that gravity, momentum, and nature pull it toward. When you think like water, you stop forcing life. You stop trying to control every detail. You stop panicking when plans shift. You stop clinging to the idea that everything must follow your expectations. Instead, you move with life, not against it. You follow the path of least resistance, not by avoiding challenges, but by avoiding unnecessary inner conflict. You flow where your potential is strongest, where your intuition is clear, where your actions align with your purpose. This is not passivity, this is wisdom. And finally, water teaches transformation. Water can be gentle rain, raging storm, flowing river, frozen ice, rising steam, or a wave capable of reshaping coastlines. It becomes whatever it must become. This is the true meaning of my words. You must become adaptable enough to survive anything and powerful enough to overcome everything. You must be flexible in your approach, but unshakable in your commitment. You must learn when to be calm and when to unleash force. You must understand when to wait and when to strike. You must be open to growth and fearless in transformation. You must evolve constantly, freely, and without hesitation. To be water is not simply to move with grace. It is to embody a level of mental strength that allows you to navigate the chaos of life without losing your essence. It means having the calmness to stay centered, the flexibility to adjust, the patience to endure, the power to break barriers, and the wisdom to choose the path that leads to mastery. When you truly understand this, you no longer feel threatened by challenges or intimidated by the unknown. You carry your strength everywhere, just as water carries itself in every form. To be water is to become unstoppable, not through aggression, but through adaptability, not through force, but through consistency, not through noise, but through quiet, disciplined power. Master this philosophy, and there is no situation you cannot handle, no obstacle you cannot move beyond, and no version of yourself you cannot become. 8. Control your inner world, or the outer world will control you. If there is one truth most people never learn in their lifetime, it is this: the world you experience is not shaped by the events around you, but by the interpretations inside you. Two people can face the exact same situation. One breaks, the other rises. Two people can face the same hardship. One becomes bitter, the other becomes wiser. Two people can face the same challenge. One retreats into fear, the other steps forward with clarity. The difference is not the situation. The difference is the inner world each person has built. Your inner world, your thoughts, your emotional patterns, your beliefs, your interpretations, your reactions, is the control center of your entire life. If you do not learn to master it, the outside world will manipulate you without resistance. When people hear the word control, they assume it means forcing themselves to feel a certain way, suppressing their emotions, or pretending to be strong. But real control is not force. It is understanding. It is awareness. It is mastery through clarity rather than repression through fear. When I trained, I realized that my body could be powerful, my techniques could be sharp, my reflexes could be lightning fast. But if my inner world was chaotic, unfocused, full of noise, and easily disturbed, all my physical strength meant nothing. A single moment of emotional instability can destroy years of training. One moment of confusion can collapse the entire structure of discipline. This is why mastering the inner world is not optional. It is essential. People often underestimate how heavily their inner world influences their actions. They think anger is just a feeling, but anger can destroy opportunities. They think fear is just an emotion, but fear can paralyze decisions. They think doubt is harmless, but doubt can suffocate progress. They think insecurity is normal, but insecurity can sabotage relationships, dreams, and even identity. These emotions are not small. They are powerful forces, and if you do not manage them, they will manage you. Most people walk through life reacting to everything automatically. They get angry without knowing why. They feel discouraged without questioning the origin. They get jealous, anxious, or insecure without ever observing the thoughts that triggered these feelings. They are controlled by the outer world because they never take the time to understand their inner one. To become truly powerful, you must build a mind that observes before it reacts. This is one of the deepest forms of training I ever practiced. When a thought appeared, fear, doubt, impatience, frustration, I learned to pause for a moment and examine it instead of obeying it. I asked myself, why am I reacting this way? Is this coming from truth or from habit? Is this emotion guiding me or distracting me? Most of the time, I discovered that the emotion had nothing to do with reality. It was simply a conditioned response from old experiences. Once I understood that, the emotion lost its power. This is the secret. The moment you shine awareness onto a negative emotion, it stops controlling you. The outer world will always test you. It will frustrate you, push you, surprise you, disappoint you, challenge you, and sometimes break pieces of you. But none of that matters if your inner world is strong, stable, disciplined, and rooted in clarity. When you control your inner world, the outer world loses its ability to shake you. You no longer panic under pressure. You no longer collapse when criticized. You no longer react impulsively when someone provokes you. You no longer crumble when life throws unexpected obstacles in your path. Instead, you respond with intention, not reaction. You choose logic over emotion. You choose patience over panic. You choose clarity over confusion. You choose direction instead of drifting wherever circumstances push you. And this mastery does not come overnight. It comes from consistent internal training, the training most people neglect because it is invisible. You cannot post it on social media. No one will praise you for it. No one sees it happening. But this invisible training is the foundation of visible success. Every great warrior, every great thinker, every great master, every great creator, they all disciplined their inner world long before the outer world admired them. To control your inner world means you do not allow every thought to become truth. You do not allow every emotion to become action. You do not allow every fear to become limitation. You do not allow every setback to become identity. You develop an internal structure so powerful that you remain centered even when everything around you is unstable. When your inner world becomes solid, the world outside you becomes navigable. You can adapt without losing yourself. You can face uncertainty without fear. You can handle conflict without chaos. You can create direction even when the environment gives you none. Master this, and you will walk through life with a level of freedom few people ever experience, because a person who controls their inner world cannot be controlled by the outer one. A person with a disciplined inner world becomes unshakable, immovable, grounded, and capable of facing challenges that others collapse under. And when you reach this level of mastery, you realize something profound. Your power was never outside of you. It was always within you, waiting for you to take command. Now that you have absorbed these teachings, I want you to understand something most people never realize until it is too late. Your life will not transform because you learned new information. It will transform only when you become a new person. Knowledge is not power unless it is embodied. Understanding is useless unless it becomes action. Hearing these lessons means nothing unless you allow them to reshape the structure of your mind. The world is full of people who collect quotes, study techniques, watch motivational videos, and repeat wise words. Yet their lives never change because their identity stays the same. They treat wisdom like entertainment instead of treating it like a responsibility. They admire strength instead of building it. They talk about discipline instead of practicing it. They dream about transformation instead of sacrificing their old self for it. They wait for life to become easier instead of becoming stronger. You must not become one of those people. You must not let this knowledge fade into the background like all the other advice people ignore. If you want to break your limits, you must do the one thing that separates warriors from spectators. You must act. Every principle I have shared with you, destroying the limits within your mind, training yourself to act without hesitation, removing everything that weakens you, mastering the silent hours of discipline, transforming pain into valuable information, eliminating your outdated identity, becoming like water, and controlling your inner world. All of these are not just ideas. They are tools for building a new version of yourself that does not bend under pressure, does not collapse under doubt, and does not surrender to fear. But these tools only work if you use them. They only transform if you commit to them. They only empower you if you apply them relentlessly, consistently, and without negotiation. You must understand another truth. The old you will try to survive. It will resist these teachings. It will whisper excuses, doubts, and emotional stories to convince you that staying the same is safer than changing. But you must be stronger than that voice. You must recognize that your greatest battle will always be within. The enemy is not outside you. It is the part of you that prefers comfort over discipline, fear over action, and hesitation over clarity. If you defeat that enemy, no external force can stop you. If you fail against that enemy, no external success will ever satisfy you. Transformation is not a moment. It is a decision repeated daily. It is a constant recommitment to the version of yourself you are becoming. It is the discipline to choose growth even when no one is watching. It is the courage to choose evolution even when it is painful. It is the clarity to choose purpose even when the path is uncertain. And it is the strength to walk alone if the world around you is not ready for your rise. But know this: once you begin, once you make the decision to evolve, once you choose to step through the doorway of discipline and leave the old self behind, something extraordinary happens. Your mind awakens, your spirit strengthens, your energy sharpens, and life begins responding to you in ways you never imagined. Your limits are not real. They are stories, they are illusions, they are shadows of the past pretending to be truth. Break them, shatter them, destroy them with discipline, action, and awareness. You are not here to live small. You are not here to repeat the same patterns. You are not here to stay trapped in the same identity. You are here to rise, to sharpen your mind, to master your inner world, and to become someone whose presence carries strength even in silence. If you truly follow these teachings, you will not just improve, you will transform. You will not just grow, you will evolve. You will not just survive, you will dominate your path. Remember this as you go forward: the world does not get to decide your limits. You do. And the moment you take command of your mind, the moment you stop negotiating with weakness, the moment you step into the identity of a warrior, the limits you once feared will crumble beneath your feet. Now go. Train your mind. Break your limits. And become the version of yourself you were always capable of becoming. The one the world is not prepared for, but the one your destiny has been waiting for.